Hey there, my name is Brooke Strode, and today we're going to go over inclusive schools. Table of contents. We're going to go over inclusive schools, why that matters, the research that I did, the course material that will help me prove this, and then my questions. Inclusive schools. Inclusive schools matter because we can see many students who struggle today with schools not being inclusive. We can see it online or even in person, and those things do need to change. Now, you might ask yourself, why does this matter? This matters because we see students who do not get the help that they need in the classroom because the school isn't inclusive towards them or don't have the correct material for them. Students deserve to have the same learning experience like others, whether it's physical or a mental kind of learning. So, an example of this could be that we see on college campuses that they have the electrical doors for students who are wheelchair bound or on crutches or canes, and they need someone to open up the door or something manually to open the door. Now, the button might be broken and it's the only way that they can get in, and they have to pull the door themselves, and that can make it complicated and more dangerous for them. Another example could be that the elevator is broken and it's the only one in the building, so they can't get to their class and they're missing out on learning experiences. Now, my research is I talked to a mother. Her son's name is Brody, and he is a deaf-blind student. He's 12 years old, and we're going to go over some of the questions that I asked her. Some of the questions are about the physical barriers that her child encountered in school, and how responsive the school was in making necessary accommodations for him, how inclusive the school environment was, and where are the instances where she felt the school's policies were not accommodating enough for her child. And the last thing is that if she could change one thing about the school's physical inclusivity, what would it be? So, I'm going to head over to another spot. Here we are. So, Brody, as I said, is a deaf-blind student. He's 12 years old. He's in 7th grade, and her answers are going to be highlighted in blue. So, just to summarize her answers for the question, the first question we have is the physical barriers that her child encountered. A lot of them, she had said that overall her school system and the schools that she had her son in were really good. Preschool and elementary school were very accommodating for her, but when he did go into elementary school, they had to drop his IEP to a 504 just for the accommodations. Now, she knew that he needed more than just the 504 plan, so she talked to someone in the district and she got the assessment done, and he wasn't qualified under the deaf blind. People have been able to follow his IEP until this year. He's had one teacher who has made it difficult to use his accommodations, unfortunately, and Brody is pretty outstanding, an outstanding advocate for himself, so he lets the teacher knows what he needs, but that teacher still can't do it sometimes. So when that happens, Brody goes to to his mom, and they're able to have a meeting with that teacher to talk about things and figure out what they can do. The next question I have is, how responsive was the school making it necessary for the accommodations? For example, ramps, wider doorways, accessible seating for her child. Preschool and elementary school, the teachers accommodated everything that she needed. As his vision progressed in middle school, we had to make more accommodations that aren't typical. Because he uses a white cane, he needs to leave the class 5 or so minutes early, and he has to wear his backpack, but other students don't have to wait until the bell, and they don't have their backpacks with them. They also release him a little bit early so he can get to the bus on time, but he's also not going through the rush of kids trying to get to the bus. The school hasn't given everything that they need, but she says it's their job as his parents to educate the school so they can get what they need for Brody and for other students in the future. Next, we have how inclusive was the school environment for the child in terms of participation in school activities. Brody has gone on many field trips, and they were all accessible to him. There's one time where he went to a space theme one, and the lights had gotten really dark, and Brady has the blindness for him. When it becomes dark quickly, he can't see, so he has a friend with him, and he uses his cane to walk around. And in kindergarten, the teacher would have a friend with him to show them for his implant that he had for his hearing. She would show the student where the microphone was, so he had somebody to communicate with, and Brody still talks about how fantastic his time in elementary school was because he could participate fully, which is something that is amazing. Next, we have, were there any instances where you felt the school's policies were not accommodating enough for your child? Federal regulation says that if you have progressive vision loss, you can qualify for vision service as soon as there's documentation. Brady has documentation of his syndrome since he was 5 months old through genetic testing. For many years, the school system for us was based on vision being good, but he didn't need services. I had to bring it in actual printed out paper with the law to show it due to the progression loss. He qualified for services. With Usher syndrome, you don't know when the vision goes entirely because it's such a gradual pace. We wanted to start him even in preschool working on keen and braille skills, but he didn't begin until 4th grade. My last question I asked her is if she could change one thing about the school's physical inclusivity, what would it be? And I think the way she answered this is perfect. She would love for there to be more training and staff for the staff and the schools. She tried to meet with him before school started to review his IEP. Technically, this is the teacher of the deaf or vision impaired parents' job, but I know that they're busy and I want to ensure the teachers have it before school starts. And I have answers to questions because I know him best. When he was in elementary school, we would go to the first few weeks of school and talk about his implant and his hearing loss, so that it was in front of people and there was nothing to make fun of. In 4th and 5th grade, he did this on his own. When he got to middle school, we started to create a PowerPoint that he sent about himself to his teachers so they could learn about his accommodations and what works and what doesn't work for him. Not all of them open it and read it, but it's there if they need it. Next, we're going to go over the assessment parts of this. So the questions or the course materials is going to be up next. So I have 3 points on here, or 3 course materials that we used. The first one is integrating people with disabilities in the workforce. This is kind of talking about how retail companies actively implement strategies to hire and successfully employ individuals who have disabilities, creating an inclusive workplace where they can contribute meaningful alongside with other employees, overcoming any potential barriers related to their disability. The next one's about a little girl. It's called What is Inclusion? The little girl who has a disability is all the way in the back of the class with a teacher aide, and they're working on something completely different compared to what the class is working on. And she's upset about that. She's not paying attention to what she's supposed to be learning with the teacher's aide because she wants to be learning about what the class is learning about. She wants to feel included. And that really matters to her. Being included for any student really matters. If you're not including all these students, whether or not they have a disability, it's not going to make them feel good about themselves. They're not going to feel included in the classroom. They're not going to want to learn, and they don't feel like they can connect with their peers properly. The last one I have is about the video talks about how the world wasn't made to accommodate everyone, and it should be. Being inclusive to those people also matter no matter what their disability is. So just like the little girl, just because she has her disability, that doesn't mean she can't learn the same stuff that she's learning in class and have it just a tad bit different so she can understand it better. One of the questions that I have. This lesson has made me ask myself some great questions. The main question I ask myself is, what can I do for students when I get to education myself? And how can I help others learn more about this? I like to ask myself this because I hope one day to become a teacher, and I really want to be a special ed teacher or have students who do have disabilities in my classroom, and I want to be able to include them in the work that we're doing. So being able to ask yourself when I do my lesson plans or when I'm planning something for students, what can I do for my student to learn properly in a way that they understand, and how will they enjoy this and feel like they are being included with the other students in the classroom. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a great day.